Namaste, Aimee.
Namaste.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation, and thank you so much for reaching out to connect.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, today we're talking about energy awareness as it first ties to spiritual awareness. The bigger picture is energy awareness, but spiritual awareness. And I know that your work really speaks to that on so many levels. So for the audience who's not familiar with you, maybe you can give us the 1,000-foot view.
Yeah, of how I came into this work, or okay, great. So the 1,000-foot view of how I came into this work is a very organic experience that I had that began truly like when I was a little girl. And I remember when I was very young, I would just know things or see things or have dreams that would come true. And that just continued to grow as I got older and older. And I saw where it lit up stronger, more around protection and such. So I always had this very deep awareness of the God of my heart, universe, angels, all of that. And then I reached a point in my early 20s where it felt almost like something was wrong with me. And so I, which I hear all the time, right? So I sought out a therapist to help me. And I went to her, I'm like, okay, something is so wrong with me. I need help, right? And after some time of speaking with me, of course, she was a perfect therapist for me because she actually pointed me in the direction of a meditation class that then brought me to the tools and developing my intuition and learning about energy and my own spirituality in a way that now brings forward my work. So it's like I went through it first. I still do the work daily myself, but I'm so passionate about the work itself and getting it out there, and passionate about helping to change lives, support lives.
Absolutely. It seems like you went through your own layers of awareness to arrive to the tools.
So much so. And it's interesting, right? Because when we become aware of something, the narrative or the energy that's in our space can start to really decide for us what it means. And that becomes a story. So, for example, I thought something was with each step of awareness. Okay, I dreamt of this, this came true. The story, the narrative around me was something's wrong with me. I'm crazy, right? Versus if the narrative around that was this is a gift, this is incredible, it has the power to change a trajectory, right?
And the tools that you mentioned, like meditation, I believe that it gives you this ability to see things from different angles and take
Mm-hmm.
the ego out of it, taking oh, what's wrong with me versus here are the conditions under which I've been either reacting or informing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that meditative space, well, the meditative space that I play with and that I work with is one that brings you into the body, and you're grounded in the body, present time, where then you have the ability to become more aware of what actually is moving through your space energetically, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, all of that. And when you go to more of a clairvoyant space, which really is just being a neutral observer to have clear vision, then you're able to neutrally take a look at what you're moving through and navigating. And with that neutrality, it literally is like this vibrational neutrality where then you release the charge and you can just look at what it is for what it is. And that allows you to move through it more quickly without the fear or the doubt or the resistance or the effort, and energy can just flow in that matter. And I think what's really important about this when we speak about spiritual awareness is that this is where we get to know who we are as a spirit. We get to know ourselves more deeply than just the body and the human that we are, that we're moving through life as. But we recognize, like, oh, okay, so I'm behind my eyes looking out. Who is it behind the eyes? Or we say this all the time, like, my body. Well, who is saying that? Who is the my? So the my body part is what helps you to start to see that there's a difference between the spirit and the body. So why meditation is so powerful, and well, one of the reasons meditation is so powerful, so many, right? But the type of meditation that I teach and that I practice myself is one that brings you into the body. And the body, one of the gifts of the body is that it's always in present time. And so as you bring your attention and your awareness and your being, your spirit back into the body fully, you start to become more aware of the energy that's there. So like what you picked up from all the things all day long or the conversations and so forth. And those energy, those vibrations show up as thoughts or feelings, right? Like, oh, I have a pain in my shoulder, or this is what I'm feeling right now, or this is really uncomfortable. And, or this memory comes up that's really charged and it brings up the emotion. So with meditation, where you can bring yourself behind your eyes into the clairvoyant space, which is really just clear seeing, right? It's being able to clearly see what you're looking at, what you're aware of, but with neutrality. And when we're in neutrality, energy can flow and we're not in resistance to it. We're not stuck in it. We don't go into it. So it's like being able to look at the thing and then let it pass through, take the information without them being stuck on something, right? So this is where this too shall pass. And one of the most empowering aspects of meditation is that we start to begin to become aware of who we are as a spirit. And that spiritual awareness is so powerful to navigate this life as we start to become aware of we are so much more than just the body. Right? Our body is here to house our spirit and allow us to flow our unique essence through it in the most beautiful way. So that spirituality aspect and what we can become aware of, and then being in that neutral observer space in meditation really does allow us to be at our fullest capacity, our fullest capability, with just greater awareness.
And some of the things that you and I have been connecting over before we hit record was the fact that intuition plays a role in helping us guide us. And often, for myself included, I'm often stuck in the headspace. And when I meditate, it takes a while to slow down that monkey mind, so to speak. And it's only after that calmness that the intuition starts becoming more evident. Maybe you could share more about your perception of the connection between intuition and spiritual awareness.
Yeah. So I see intuition as the language of the soul. It's how spirit, God of our heart, universe is speaking to us. And it's soft and subtle. Sometimes maybe a little bit more loud and so forth, but typically it's going to be different than how our intellect processes things and how we're aware of what the intellectual experiences of things, because we're taught that. That's what we go to school for. We learn how to analyze, critical think, do the problems. Like this is our human experience, which is so important and invaluable. We need that. And at the same time, it's also then recognizing that we too are spirit. So the language of the soul, combining that with our human language, allows us to be that much more aware. So the intuition shows us where we need to look. And I speak of this a lot. I see where if we just imagine that our intuition actually informs our intellect, then it changes everything. But really what we mostly do is we want to stay safe, right? Stay in the box, do what works, do what the checklist is. And so then we'll stick with like, okay, well, my intellect or on paper, this looks safest, right? And we will then go, but how do I feel about it? Well, but something's kind of pulling on me, or, but I thought this, or, oh, I was, whatever the intuition was sharing with us, we'll kind of put to the wayside because this looks safe. So I'm going to do this. But we are really turning our backs on ourselves. And so when we can start to look at, okay, actually, what if I reversed that? And I said, okay, here's this decision I need to make. And I've said this for years because my teachers would say it forever, is let me meditate on that. So when people ask me to do something, or I have an opportunity for something, I say, let me meditate on that and I'll get back to you. And really it's like conscious contemplation. Let me look at this and truly see all the different aspects of it. So if I stop before I make that decision and I activate my intuition and I go into that meditative space, and it doesn't mean that you have to formally have eyes closed. You can be walking about your day, but go into that space of let me consciously contemplate this and ask my wisest self, which is my higher self, my intuition, what I need to be aware of in moving this through. And if it's a yes, then great. Now I'm going to hand it off to my intellect, my mind, my body to actually implement and get it done. But it starts to change the relationship of how we see ourselves. Because the other is like the body's the thing, the mind's the thing. And there's only so much that the mind and body can do, not to in any way say that that's small, because we're still learning so much more about it. But I do know that the way I see it is that spirit and energy holds so much possibility. It's all from spirit, right? It's all spirit down.
Absolutely. And in this world of where there's so many connotations around spirituality, how do we demystify it so that others who may benefit understand that this is not for those, I don't know, like woohoo
Yeah.
people out there that need to adhere to something that is esoteric?
So, gosh, it's a really good question, and it's $1 million question. I think that you've heard me say a couple times here, like God of your heart. So I think what's most important is for each individual, because we're all on our own path, human wise, spirit wise, all of it, we're on our own unique path. And so to find whatever resonates for you. So whoever the God of your heart is, whatever the God of your heart is, whatever languaging helps you to get to that place, it's not about the label or the thing or the structure. It's about the experience you have within yourself with whatever this greater power is. So it's recognizing that there is more to you than just body. And with just that possibility, it's then opening up to like, okay, so am I willing to be open to the possibility that I am more than just my body? Am I willing to be open to the possibility that I am more than my mind? And starting to open up in that way and see what's there for you, for yourself. I think that's the most important piece, is that it doesn't have to fit within one culture or one religion or one God or one thing. It truly is this intimate experience of yourself and of higher power.
Absolutely. And again, tying it back to meditation, which is such a powerful technique, that's agnostic to the religion or agnostic to the labels of spirituality. It is something that all humans can apply.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much science backed on meditation now. When I first started doing this work, it was like saying energy or aura or intuition, 20 plus years ago. That was like, you just didn't hear that at all. I was a closet intuitive and clairvoyant for many, many years. And now it's so exciting to see where these words are they're almost thrown around now. They're almost like cool, right? Like the spirituality commercialization. And I think what's important to recognize is that these words, they offer an opening. And so each person gets to fill into what is that invitation for themselves. But with that, then that science-backed information showing what it does to the body physiologically, the changes and the shifts that meditation offer to the body, the stress reduction, like all the practical things. So if that's the entry point for somebody and that's why they're doing it, fabulous. That's exactly where they are on their path, and that's exactly where they need to be. And there's no judgment on that. Just like somebody who's going to go and meditate from a spiritual perspective for 5 months on a mountaintop. Neither one is better or worse. There's no hierarchy. It's all about all of us being on our own path. That's it.
And the benefits are the same. Essentially, if you're meditating, I mean, you are able to, let's say you're doing it for a strictly intellectual reason, neuroplasticity basically informs us, neuroplasticity informs us that we are able to now reprogram the brain and change conditions on how we react and respond, which is a human condition we all deal with, especially when we all are dealing with fear.
Yeah. And I think that the most important piece there is, again, it's just about being open to the possibility of. So saying, yes, I'm going to close my eyes and meditate, and being open to change. Because, years and years ago, I never get clients like this anymore. But when I first began, I had a couple of clients that came to me for intuitive readings, for clairvoyant readings. And the energy that they came forward with was like, I don't believe this, so prove it. Right? Like, they actually paid me for a reading, showed up for it, but there was no opening in their space for them to possibly find if it was actually true or valuable. It was like more of this prove it energy. I actually stopped one of the readings and I said, I can't help you. It's okay. Like, you're not into this, you're not open, so this is not going to benefit you or me. So I ended it. So the same idea with meditation or any practice, anything in life, we have to be open to the possibility that this will support us, that this will grow us, that this will bring us to an outcome that we truly desire, whether we're even willing to share with ourselves or not what we actually really want, right? So that opening is, yes, I'm open to the possibility. And then as far as like, you're saying it'll be the same, regardless of like, if you're reaching it from a science or a spiritual perspective, yes, like physiologically, yes. And I will offer though, that it continues to grow and evolve. And the main difference is going to be the awareness and what you'll allow yourself to become aware of. Right.
And it's so subtle on some level, like you and I earlier before I hit record talked about the concept of being empathetic or an empath or clairvoyant. These concepts don't necessarily need to be those esoteric concepts.
Right. They don't. They don't. You can put them in. I was in corporate America for quite some time, many years, and I was very successful at what I did. And towards the latter part of my career in corporate, I was success coach. I worked with organizations on going in and working with the people to help them become even better in their own personal life, as well as then at work, because that of course impacts. And I did amazing work and I was very successful at it. And this is the thing. I went in there with an intuitive perspective and an energetic spiritual perspective. And with that awareness, I didn't change who I am. The verbiage changed, but I didn't change who I was or how I was working. I'm an intuitive individual. So of course I'm going to keep that flowing. And that actually very much helped myself and then also the companies I was working with.
And the work that you're doing now, maybe you could share a little deeper how what that entails and the tools that you provide there, such as the quiz. Maybe you could share more about the quiz.
Yeah. So the quiz is an intuitive quiz where you start to learn about how your intuition speaks to you. It's about learning the language of your soul, which I spoke to a little bit earlier. And it's a really fun, pretty short quiz where you go through and ask questions of like, do you ever hear this? Or do you see things? Or do you speak in analogies? These questions that help to shine light on the way that your intuition predominantly speaks to you. And there's 4 different ways, four clairs, if you will, the 4 different types. And I've given them fun names and all of that. And it's one of those things where you start to learn, oh, that's what intuition is. And what's so important about learning that is that then you get to start to build a really strong, beautiful, loving relationship with your intuition. One where then you learn to trust it and you learn to act on it, and it just grows and gets stronger and stronger. It's like any relationship needs communication in order for it to be healthy and to thrive and to grow. But so often we'll just think of intuition as something outside of ourselves, or somebody else has it, or it's in there, but I don't trust it. And it's kind of tucked away. And when we can start to actually bring it into our forefront of our daily lives and have communication with it. But again, first you have to know, how is it speaking to me? So learning that will shine a lot of light. And also, I was sharing this with you earlier, like all of us have all of them. Our intuition speaks to us in all of these ways, every single person. Sometimes it's turned down so much, or it's so out of proportion that we don't recognize that that's what it is. And there might be a predominant way that, okay, that's what it is when it's in this experience or this person's around me. But when I hit this other situation, whatever pictures you're moving through or memories, feelings, it can talk to you in different ways.
And given that we are now sort of leaving this era of the post-pandemic, hopefully,
Yeah.
and I believe that a lot of people had all these layers of fear
Mm-hmm.
on whether it's the mental or physical or having things energy blocked in your body. How does intuition help you release and heal?
Mm-hmm. So it allows you to become aware of it. We can't change anything that we're not aware of. And I think of our awareness, our energy as a very healing light. So as you become aware of something that's stuck in your body, right? Like let's say there's a pain or a fear, like you said, I'm so in fear that I'm not going to be able to pay this bill. And it's stuck right in my abdomen. And I've been having stomach aches and I just haven't been feeling well and all the things. And I'm not connecting the two. The moment that I stop and I start to say, okay, wait, I'm feeling this. Okay, intuition, like, what is this? And I start to bring awareness to it, which again requires us to be in communication with the body first through meditation. Then my awareness, my neutral observation of it, my light on it starts to melt it away. It automatically, we know how to heal ourselves. We have the most amazing, brilliant energy systems. And so when we start to bring our attention to it, that starts to melt that away, starts to clear it, and then that starts to create the change and the healing. So our intuition can help us to start to navigate and release out some of these energies that are getting triggered in our space, because that is what life is. There will always be challenges and fears, and always, but it's how are we navigating through them? And do we trust ourselves to be able to navigate whatever comes our way? So that's the main thing, is that seeing the fear, noticing when you get into resistance of it, or an effort to make it different. And know when that happens, we're in a body level experience and a body level communication, which halts it. It makes it stick longer. But when we can shift that neutral perspective and look at it from an energetic, spiritual perspective, then that allows for it to start to flow like a river instead of being dammed up.
And you mentioned that there are different intuitive types, and we're all a blend of maybe all one or many.
Yeah.
I recall as a child when certain trauma was occurring fairly young, and I had developed this habit, and I just thought it was me being overly analytical at a young age. But
Yeah.
I would like identify patterns and understand when those things were about to come again, whatever that trauma was. And it actually would help me because I would recognize it. And now I'm realizing what you're describing. Maybe it was just a strong intuition.
Yes, because what you're describing, and as you say that, what I'm looking at is how you see patterns. And I'm the same. Like I see patterns. So if somebody's talking, I'll be able, like it'll light up. Things will light up. It's like a constellation. I'm like, oh, this goes with this, and this goes with this. Even though words or the human experience might not have any matching, or like, why would you put those two together? It's like that game where you flip over the card and you try to like match the things. It's like these two go together, but you're like, but the pictures don't match. And you're like, yes, but behind the picture, behind the human eye, what the human eye can experience, there's a vibration. The energy is the same. So you become aware of those, and that is your intuition. Now, what you just described though, with that trauma and such, it's almost like what I've found over and over again, and for myself and for many clients, is that we can outgrow what worked for us as a child. And then as an adult, we're still operating from those systems, right? So when you're a little girl and that would happen, like, oh, the trauma is going to happen, and now it was very true, very useful, and extremely creative, and shows your capability to be able to navigate that. But then I wonder, like, at some point as you grew, did that no longer serve you? And then did it tip over where now it actually hinders? So these are the things to start to look at. And this is where intuition can help us to see, like, is this in present time, or is it no longer in present time? And it's just like this, I'm looking at it like in your shoulder down to your chest, like this, it's almost like a cinched metal piece that's holding you in place, because this at one point kept you safe.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, because now as I get older, what I recognize is those patterns and analysis and whatever intuition was helping me drive for whatever capacity for healing or safety. Mm-hmm. As an adult, I no longer need to be in that mode. I can meditate, recognize what is showing up, mm-hmm. and now learning to release it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's just like when I've seen this a lot in readings and healings, that in our younger years as a child, it was important for our survival to heal our mom or heal our dad, and to take on the energy and be the peacemaker, because truly at that point in our lives, our survival was dependent on it. Like, it literally was. So then, yes, it's almost, I don't want to say it's an even exchange in any way, but it was necessary for us to survive and move through. But if we keep that when we're grown adults and we no longer have parents who we are relying on for our survival because we are grown, we're no longer children, then that same pattern can create harm. So with intuitive awareness, you can, and the way that I see intuition light up the most for me is through questions. So a random question can come into play. Or you have a feeling that's like, I wonder why I have that feeling. And again, any question is, I call it intuitive curiosity. Any question creates a doorway and a pathway to learn more. The questions lead to another question that leads to another. It's like breadcrumbs back to your truth and to the source of what's actually happening. So allowing yourself to be intuitively curious about, I notice that I always do this, or that I feel this, or I wonder why I'm not able to manifest this, and just allow the answers to be shown to yourself, not intellectually curious, trying to find the answer, but intuitively curious, letting it present. Let the answer present to you.
Now, going back to your quiz, what is the most common type of pattern you often see in the quizzes? Like, where you're not surprised, you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'd say that majority come back as, because I do go through and I read them because I think they're fascinating and I love to see who's with me, who's in my world. Central creative is the number one. And central creative is all about the feeling. It's reading energy from your second chakra. And we do this, most women do this mostly, right? Men as well, but I would say that predominantly women. So it's a natural process of, let's say you're going into this room and you open the door and you walk in the room. Immediately, there's this scanner that we have in the second chakra that starts to scan the room to say, am I safe? What's happening in this room? Are my children safe? Right? Like all the people that I care for, the nurturing and the loving, the feelings of it. And then we feel what's happening in that room. That's why a lot of us can recognize, like, oh, something feels off, or it feels stressful, but not a word is being said, or this feels so amazing. We get a sense of the energy through feeling it. So the thing with this, and this is why I bring it into, when you sign up for the quiz and you take it and you learn, then I educate you more so as to like how to work with that, and then also grow into the other ones. Because what I found is that, and what my learning is in my training, is that actually, though, if we're only in the second chakra, in that sensual, creative space, then we're more susceptible to become it, because it is such a body level experience that then it's like, wait, am I upset? Are you upset? Is this my energy? Is this your energy? And that's where we get into what I was describing earlier as to how I got into this work. Is like, something's wrong with it. But when we can feel it, and then the trick that I have for this is like, okay, great. So here I am feeling this sensation. If I could give it a color, what color is this emotion? What color is this information that I'm aware of through being a creative sensual? And then the moment I see it as a color, I'm immediately bringing it into a clairvoyant space of being able to see it. And in that clairvoyant space, again, you're a neutral observer. So then the charge is gone and you can see what it is. This is why I teach predominantly, I have a really big course training on the clairvoyant space. All of them are so beautiful and amazing, and they all work together, but learning how to work with them together is very, very powerful.
Absolutely. I feel that a lot of this information you're giving, whether it's the intellectual brain side or the other side, it gives them the tools to at least tap into this energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say, like, with the intellectual side, for anybody who's watching, like, if you notice yourself saying like, yeah, but, right, or well, that's just, right, because we'll do this a lot. We'll get an intuitive hit and then we'll rationalize it. Yeah, but that just happened because of this or that, or somebody else. We'll share it with somebody else, and then they'll like put it, well, that just happened because of this, and this. And it steals the magic from it, right? But it's recognizing if that's your pattern, there's a fear, most likely at some point in your life, most likely as a child, you were either shamed or told that was ridiculous, or in some way an adult picture came in and shut that part of you off. It was unsafe for you to connect with that. And what I want to offer is that it's a choice in present time to reopen it, to go back and go, let me explore this part of me, which is your spiritual right. Every single individual has these tools and these abilities, and it is a skill to develop and to cultivate.
And going back to spiritual right, I believe that, again, whether or not people are buying into the concept of spirituality, just knowing that each of us have the ability to heal through improved awareness of where we're coming from. That alone is so powerful.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to words. Words hold energy. And so when people ask me what I do, like, actually, I haven't gotten these questions in a long, long time, so it's showing me where I'm at. But I used to get asked all the time, like, well, what's the difference between a clairvoyant, an intuitive, and a psychic? I'm like, well, which one do you feel most comfortable with? Well, intuitive, because psychic is just. And what happens is that there's a picture in people's minds. They have a meaning behind a word. And that meaning either makes it safe or unsafe, or good or bad. So if any of the verbiage lights anybody up, try on a different word and look at the big picture of where you're wanting to get. You want more peace. You want to feel better. You just want to feel good. You want more abundance. You want to know yourself better. You want to take better care of yourself. Like, that is where you're going. And so it's recognizing, if you so choose to explore this spiritual path, just change the verbiage, or recognize if it gets lit up and go, okay, but that doesn't have to be what it's bringing up for you. It doesn't have to mean that. It can mean something different. This is where connecting with the language of the soul is so important, because it's like, let yourself just feel yourself through it. Let yourself just see yourself through it, versus intellectually tell yourself the things.
That is so powerful. I have a friend who's in this space generally, but a little more on the intellectual side. And she will talk about clarity, and she helps me bring clarity on problems I'm trying to solve. But the moment I'll say spirituality, she'll say, oh, but that's not in my wheelhouse.
Right. And you can ask her, well, when I say spirituality, what are the thoughts that come up? What's the feeling that comes up? What's the picture that come up? Well, my mom was so spiritual and it was off to this side and then it cut everybody else out. And so then that's bad because she was into spirituality. So spirituality now is, I don't want that. But if I am spiritual, then that's what's going to happen. So that's what I mean. Like they hold charges and they hold pictures. So then it's like, well, so if that wasn't it, what would you want it to be for yourself? This is where mindset comes into, right? Like the energetic mindset, because thoughts and mindset is just a different form of energy. So then it's, you get to choose what you want your belief to be about it.
And Aimee, what you described also intuitively sparked a thought in my head about what is the outcome you're seeking? And most likely, just about everyone you and I know, they want to feel peace and calmness.
Yeah, they want to be content.
Want.
And to be content and feel connected.
Yes.
And I think that it's amazing, it's incredible to live at this time because there is this, to use the total woo word, awakening, but there is more consciousness and it's being born from this drive of so much pressure from the external worldly things that are happening on a personal level, collectively, all of it, that then it's like there's nowhere else to go. It's closing in, right? The feeling is like it's closing in, or I'm outside of myself, or I'm not even like remembering my days. It's just this, I wake up, I do this, and I don't even remember my day. There's no joy in it. It's just flat. We're not living. That's not living. That's not why we're here. So really it's about feeling connected to yourself so you can be engaged in your life. And when you're engaged in your life, you're present to all the things. And this is the difference. This is where we start to shift into experiencing ordinary things in extraordinary ways. But we're seeking these extraordinary things. I need to have 5 million followers and I need to write 5 million books and I need to be on this show and I need to, buy these cars, or like all of these things that are extraordinary. Like I've watched where our dreams are getting bigger almost, which is amazing. But some of it is an unhealthy like fantasy of escaping the pain that we're in our day-to-day lives. As soon as I have 5 yachts, right? Like, or as soon as I'm named this at my work, as soon as I get this promotion. But these are all external things that seem extraordinary. But if we start to come inward, connect with who we are as spirit, and look up the scientific term of spirit, then if that stops you, but who we are more than just our flesh and blood, and start to connect to ourselves and let it be simple, then all of a sudden we have the ability to experience the ordinary moments in life as absolutely extraordinary.
That is the perfect segue for the second part of our conversation, because you touched upon it intuitively just for both of us. Energy awareness. Your thoughts.